Hello everyone and welcome to my recording. Today we're going to go over the Quarter Onion Games workflow. We don't use the traditional workflow that you would use with the creation kit because right now there is no support for version control in the Starfield creation kit, so we've had to come up with our own funky solution for that. So what we do is we tie the creation kit to mod organizer, is we can leverage mod organizer's overwrite folder to detect all the random files that the creation kit likes to make for various things like quests, terrain. Those are the common ones that create a lot of files that you don't know about because they're not really documented thanks to Bethesda. And then we use a folder junction to get that data from the mod organizer staging folder over to the GitHub Repos so that we can commit it and have a backup of all our work along with version control. And then to make the ESP readable in GitHub, we use Spriget to convert it. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is, well, we already have our repos out there, so I'm going to clone one of our existing ones. In this case, I'm going to use Modular Arsenal. Originally, it started out as Modular Ammo, but it got renamed. We use a product called Fork because it has better large file support. Some of the other ones, like GitHub Desktop, barely supports it whatsoever. And the other big one, GitKraken, supports it, but it's pretty buggy. It likes to crash out a lot. So we've settled on this one. The developers are really responsive and it works well. And we've not had any trouble with it. So as you can see, I just went file clone. It pulled the URL I copied from GitHub and pre-filled it for me. I'm going to browse to where I store all of my Quarter Onion Games repos. You could rename it to Modular Arsenal if you want, but I like to match the folders with the repo name. And clone it. Okay, now we have it locally. It'd be a little bit different if I was making a new repo from scratch, but we're not, so some of the steps are all pre-set up. So like I would have to have gone and set up. So part of this thing is I wrote a bunch of PowerShell scripts that make life easier for us, like the shared config is all the configuration information. It reads it from a .env file, which I'll create here in a second. And then it like gets the names for namespaces for Papyrus. It does all the handling of the Papyrus compiling. I have a script to set up the folder junction. I have another script to verify the folder junction because it likes to become disconnected if either side, its parent folder, or actually anywhere in the parent path, gets renamed. Sometimes Defender seems to like trigger it too, so it's best just to have every day before you start working, just to run in there and verify it just to be safe. I am going to copy one of our other env files over, and then I'll go edit it for this one. So the top part of it, this is where you've stored Spriget. This is the path. Most of these will just take this path, and I probably could use environment variables to make this easier instead of setting them all individually, but I'm a lazy programmer, so this is what we get. The main ones you'll have to change that aren't coming directly out of Steam are these module ones at the bottom. So what we do there is we go into Mod Organizer, just go make an empty module, name it whatever you want. In this case, I'm calling it QG-modular. And it's easier just open it in Explorer, copy the path, and then go paste it. I use Control H to do file replace. We do use, I probably should have mentioned that we use Visual Studio Code for all of our Papyrus scripting. We do not use Bethesda's formatter or tool because it will only work in a specific case. Basically, you have to work straight out of the CK in the development in the data folder, which doesn't do well for binding to a repository. So we use this one from Joel Day. And I will see if I can get it linked in the description later. It works pretty good. It doesn't have direct Starfield support, but Starfield's Papyrus is close enough to Skyrim and Fallouts that you won't run into trouble. And then the next step is we just go run that setup. Initial repo setup script I showed you earlier. That will create the folder junction. No, please forget about that. Got to delete the existing folder to make it a junction, and then we'll revert the changes. All right, now that the junction's created, we go back in here, go back up here, discard all of these changes. That's just copying the files back into the junction folder. And then come in here, refresh, you'll see it's happy. Then to launch the CK with it, make sure it's enabled. And then just launch the CK. The workflow, this version of the workflow is much easier than the previous incarnations where we were copying files around and trying to get stuff into the data folder to make it happy. So this way, overall, massively sped up our development cycle, and it's less risk of files being missed or incorrect versions being copied back out. Once the folder junction is up, and as long as you don't rename any of those parent paths or Defender doesn't decide it's a bad thing, you're good. And it looks like this repo is a little bit out of date. I'm missing I was going to show you the verify step, but oh, there it is, check repo. Yeah, CK's firing up. So my system's pretty taxed right now. Now all it does is go check to make sure it's folder junction. If it is, then it just returns valid. It's a pretty simple script. Apparently I need to get it bound back up here so you can do it as a run task. Oh, there it is. All right, now the CK is loaded. Oh, nope, it's still thinking about it. All right, I'm back and the CK just finished loading. Unfortunately, that was only phase one. All right, CK is loaded. You use your show edited forms to just see what you have, only your changes. In the case of Modular Arsenal, everything is pretty much mods. And there's all of our changes. That's pretty much the workflow. The one other thing, it does it automatically, but I will do it manually once just to show you. You can do the Sprigget dump data files to YAML. And that way I have something to commit to because we're on a new version of Sprigget today. Oh, nice. I have another crash to send off to Justin. So what you would normally do now is you just right click here, choose stage all. Because it's failed, I'm not actually can commit them. Once it finishes staging, we'll type a and then you hit commit. But like I said, I'm not going to because it failed to process Sprigget correctly, so I'm not entirely sure what actually worked and didn't. So we will just discard all changes. Then unlike GitHub Desktop and some of the other IDs, fork remains pretty close to the GitHub command line workflow, so you must always fetch first, and then if it sees changes, do a pull. In the other ones, like GitHub Desktop, for example, pull doesn't fetch automatically. Then once you commit, then you push it up to the origin repo. That's pretty much it for our workflow. Thank you for tuning in.